Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are your expert guides, and we're ready again to take a whole stack of sources and really distill the most powerful, actionable knowledge, specifically for you.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Today's mission is, well, it's focused, it's highly practical, and I think it might be one of the most important dives we've taken for anyone, really aiming for true fluency in English.
That's absolutely right. We aren't looking at obscure vocabulary today, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
We are dissecting the essential building blocks, these high-utility, high-frequency phrases that are, well, they're kind of the glue of natural English conversation.
The glue, I like that.
And the source material for this deep dive, it comes from an expert English language educator who specifically picked these 4 constructions. Why? Because mastering them really moves the learner from just, basic comprehension to actual smooth communication.
Okay, so if you've ever felt like your English is, let's say, technically correct, but maybe it still sounds a bit stiff, a little textbook-like, then this deep dive is definitely for you. We're aiming to unlock that natural rhythm. We're talking about those critical microstructures. They seem small, but they carry huge amounts of conversational weight.
They really do.
They let you express complex ideas, things like regret, or making an immediate announcement, handling fluid topic changes, even talking about precise deficiency, and doing it with accuracy.
And look, if you don't master these specific structures, you often end up communicating an idea kind of flatly. You lose the emotional nuance or maybe the contextual subtlety that a native speaker just instantly picks up on.
Right.
So this deep dive, it's really a shortcut to sounding, well, more informed and more integrated into the language.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's unpack this source material. We have 4 phrases we're going to dissect today, and like you said, each one is surprisingly deep. First, should have done, which, deals with hindsight. Then, someone is back, that announcement of presence.
Yep.
Third, by the way, which you called our conversational lubricant.
Yeah, something like that.
And finally, short by, the language of precise measurement and deficiency. Let's start with the one that probably carries the most emotional baggage.
Makes sense. Let's do it.
Okay, we begin with should have done. I think everyone, no matter what language they speak, knows this feeling. It's like the universal language of regret, isn't it?
It really is. But linguistically, what exactly is happening here? What's the structure doing?
Yeah, what's under the hood?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this construction should have done, it's purely hypothetical, and it's entirely retrospective looking back.
Okay.
We're expressing an unfulfilled past action, something that didn't happen. The structure is modal verb should, then the auxiliary verb have, and then the past participle of the main verb. So, should have listened, should have waited, or our base example, should have done.
Okay, I get the grammar, the structure makes sense. But for a learner, maybe someone who's used to other ways to talk about the past, why is this specific combination, the modal plus have plus past participle, why is it so essential?
Well, because it basically exists only to critique or evaluate a past choice, a choice that is now irreversible.
Oh.
It sets up what we call a necessary counterfactual. It's like an alternative reality where a better action was taken, or at least what the speaker thinks was a better action.
Right.
And this is fundamental for any kind of advanced discussion, really. Doesn't matter if you're analyzing a big historical event or just, thinking about last night's poor decisions.
Yeah, definitely relatable. Okay, let's immediately address the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
Something every non-native speaker bumps into, pronunciation and contraction. Because, let's be honest, nobody actually says, I should have gone.
Right.
Actually.
This is probably the most critical technical insight for fluency with this phrase. For listening comprehension, you absolutely must recognize the rapid reduced form is almost always reduced. Often it becomes lovey, pronounced like V. So should've.
Should've.
Or even more informally, sometimes in really fast speech, it almost disappears into just an A sound. People often write it like shoulda.
Shoulda. Wow.
So I should have called becomes I should have called.
Yeah.
Or even faster, I should have called.
Right.
Now, if a learner is only listening for the full form, should have, they're going to be completely lost in a normal, casual conversation.
Yeah, totally missed.
The source material really emphasizes this phonetic shortcut. It's like a necessary bridge to actually understanding natural speech.
That reduction is massive, though. It really turns 3 distinct words into basically one quick sound.
It does. It really does. Okay, so now let's look at how this actually plays out. Scenario 1, personal regret and missed opportunity.
Right. This is that internal monologue, isn't it? the one we all have after we mess something up. The example from the sources is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Missing a critical deadline. You think, I should have started the project earlier.
Exactly. And when you use this phrase about yourself, I should have, it signals self-criticism, maybe disappointment. The emotional tone is, well, it's heavy. Because you're acknowledging that the outcome, missing the deadline, is a direct result of not taking that better action starting earlier. So for the learner, mastering this allows for a much deeper level of emotional expression. It's way more nuanced than just stating, I didn't start early. It shows you understand that complex relationship between action, consequence, and, hindsight.
Okay, that makes sense for personal stuff.
Yeah.
But what happens when we shift that emotional weight onto other people? Let's talk about scenario 2, critical advice after the fact.
Ah, yes. So when you applied the same structure to another person, you should have done X, you're essentially performing a critique of their past decision.
Even if you're trying to be helpful.
Even then, yeah. It often comes across as criticism. Imagine someone buys a house without getting an inspection, and then they run into major expensive problems.
Oh, dear.
A friend might comment, maybe gently, maybe not so gently, you really should have gotten an inspection. It functions as an assessment, an evaluation of their poor judgment, but after the fact, when it's too late.
Okay, and this is where I need to step in as the proxy for the learner who might be confused. If the friend just wants to criticize, why not just use the simple past? Why not just say, you didn't get an inspection?
That's a really great question because it perfectly highlights the difference between just stating a fact and giving an opinion about necessity or advisability.
Okay.
You didn't get an inspection. That's a neutral statement of fact. It just describes what happened or didn't happen.
Right.
But you should have gotten an inspection that explicitly introduces the speaker's judgment. It says, look, there was a better action available. You needed to do it, and you didn't. It assigns blame, or at least implies a mistake was made, whether you say it softly or harshly.
Okay. That's why we call it critical advice. It carries that judgment.
Precisely. And that really makes the distinction between should have done, talking about past regret or criticism, and the simple should do, talking about present obligation or advice, much clearer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. One is about an irreversible past mistake, something you can't change now. The other is about what's necessary or advisable right now or in the future.
Exactly. Now, let's maybe explore a deeper insight here that the source is flagged. The structure's inverse, the negative form, shouldn't have done.
Okay. Regretting something you did do instead of something you didn't.
Exactly. So I shouldn't have bought that stock, for example. It expresses regret over an action that was taken.
Right.
And this negative form shouldn't have done is really key for articulating the feeling of having taken a wrong turn, of making a mistake you wish you could undo. Like, ugh, I shouldn't have drunk so much coffee before bed last night.
Yeah, we've all been there.
The outcome is obvious, you couldn't sleep, and the structure shouldn't have expresses that immediate self-imposed criticism of the action that led to the bad result.
So it's essential for talking about mistakes you actually made and connecting them directly to the negative consequence.
Yes. Very important for expressing those kinds of regrets.
Okay, let's discuss one final, maybe more complex application. Using this for hypothetical scenarios, but about the distant past. Scenario 3, historical analysis.
Right. This really elevates the phrase from just personal regret or casual criticism to, well, critical analysis. When you discuss history, historians use this structure constantly.
Like how?
Well, you might read something like, the general should have reinforced the western flank. Now, that isn't just stating a fact about what didn't happen.
No, it's an argument.
It's an expert assessment. It implies that the failure to reinforce that flank directly led to a negative outcome, maybe losing the battle. It's a powerful tool for academic discussion, for critical thinking. It shows the ability to evaluate past choices and their consequences.
Wow, okay. So if the learner wants to write, say, a compelling analysis of anything really, a business failure, a personal mistake they made, or even a political misstep this structure should have done or shouldn't have done, it's almost mandatory for sounding authoritative and reflective.
It really is. It signals a deeper level of thinking about cause and effect in the past.
Okay, so if should have done kind of keeps us chained to the past and its regrets, the next phrase, someone is back, snaps us right into the immediate present. It sounds simple, right? Just a basic declarative announcement. But I have a feeling its simplicity hides quite a bit of linguistic efficiency.
Oh, it absolutely does. This phrase is actually a masterclass in how English uses tense, specifically the simple present tense, to convey a particular conversational function.
Okay.
As the sources point out, the structure uses the simple present, someone is back. But here's the tricky part. It's not actually describing an action that's happening right now, like he is running.
Right, the returning part is already finished.
Exactly. It's describing a state of being, the state of having successfully returned and being present now.
Okay, I could already hear the learner asking this. Why wouldn't I use the present perfect tense then? Like, someone has returned. That seems, grammatically more accurate for a completed action that's relevant now.
And that is the absolute core linguistic confusion we need to sort out here. It's a great question. Someone has returned. That emphasizes the action of the journey. It focuses on the completion of the movement itself.
Right, the act of coming back.
Yes, but someone is back. This emphasizes the result, the current availability, the state of being here now.
Ah, okay.
And in most situations where you'd announce someone's return, we don't really care about the journey they took. We only care about their present status. Are they here? Are they available?
Makes sense.
So the simple present is back functions as this instantaneous signal. It tells you about their immediate operational availability. It's just a much more efficient linguistic shortcut for that specific purpose.
Okay, let's dive into the first scenario then.
Yeah.
Scenario 1, literal physical return and immediate notification.
Right, this is its most common everyday use. Imagine you're in an important meeting and it got paused because a key decision maker had to step out for a call.
Okay.
Someone sees them return and says, okay, John is back from his conference call. What does that phrase instantly tell everyone in the room?
Well, 1, John is physically here again. And 2, we can probably get started again. Whatever we were waiting for him for can happen now.
Exactly. It signals that critical shift in status, his presence, that directly affects the required actions or the flow for everyone else present. We can resume the meeting.
And I think the efficiency you mentioned is really key here. It's quick. It delivers the important news fast, often kind of preempting the need for a longer explanation like, oh, John has just finished his call and has re-entered the room.
Right, who talks like that? He is back, does the job perfectly. Now let's move to scenario 2, which is pretty cool. Metaphorical or contextual return. This is where the phrase really stretches its usefulness beyond just people arriving.
Okay, how can an idea or like an object be back if it doesn't physically move?
Well, by returning to relevance or maybe popularity or discussion, think about fashion trends.
Oh, right.
Someone might say, you won't believe it, high-waisted pants are back.
Definitely heard that one.
Or maybe in technology, after years of touch screens everywhere, maybe a car review says, good news, physical buttons are back in car interiors.
Oh.
We use is back or are back really efficiently here to signal a state of revival or reappearance within a specific context, like fashion or tech. It sounds much smoother, much more natural than using more cumbersome academic language like we are observing a resurgence in the trend of.
Yeah, our back is much punchier.
Yeah.
That's actually a really powerful application for learners talking about culture or history, market trends. It gives them this crisp, native-sounding way to declare that something's popular again or relevant again.
Absolutely. Now, let's consider maybe a third scenario, one that ties into broadcasting or maybe narrative storytelling. Scenario 3, the narrative reentry.
You mean like in a sports broadcast or something?
Precisely. Think about it. If a star player got injured earlier in the game and then returns,
Yeah.
the commentator never says he has returned to the game. That sounds weirdly formal and slow.
Right, they shout something like,
They announce dramatically he's back on the field. It creates excitement, immediacy.
yeah, energy.
Similarly, think about a movie trailer. They might want to announce a beloved villain is returning for the sequel. They won't say, the Joker has come back. They'll say,
The Joker is back. Much scarier.
exactly. This use really focuses on the dramatic or the narrative significance of the return, not just the simple physical movement.
That really highlights the difference in focus, doesn't it? Is back centers on the impact of that return on the current situation or the story or the game.
Perfectly put. And that actually leads us nicely into a common error that learners sometimes make. They confuse is back with just general recurrence, something happening again.
How does that usually look? What's the mistake?
Well, learners might try to use is back when they simply mean something is happening again. For instance, maybe it stopped raining for an hour and then it starts again. A learner might say, oh, the rain is back.
Okay, I mean, I probably understand that.
You'd understand it, yeah. but it's not quite natural for just any return of rain. The rain is back kind of implies the rain had a more specific, maybe anticipated return, like, oh, good, the seasonal monsoon is back.
Ah, like it was expected or it's a significant event.
If it's just, rain starting again after a brief pause, the most natural, simple choice is just, oh, it's raining again.
Okay.
So is back sort of reserves its power for returns to a known location, like John is back, or a known status, like high-waisted pants are back, or a known pattern, the monsoons are back.
Got it. So understanding this structure lets the learner make a conscious choice. Do they want to emphasize simple repetition, use again? Or do they want to highlight a significant restoration of status or presence, use is back?
Exactly. And making that choice correctly is a huge step towards more subtle, more native-like communication.
Okay, we've journeyed from the past, should have done, to the present state, someone
Right.
is back. Now let's tackle the actual mechanics of conversation itself with our third phrase. By the way, if English conversation is like a road, then maybe by the way is the smoothly paved off-ramp. It lets you, take a detour without crashing the whole flow.
That's a great analogy, actually. This phrase is perhaps the most crucial discourse marker on our list today for managing conversational flow.
Discourse marker.
Yeah, it's basically a linguistic signal. It tells the listener, hey, hang on, I am about to introduce something else here. It might be a digression, maybe an afterthought, maybe just a secondary piece of information that's possibly unrelated or only semi-related.
Right.
And crucially, it signals that we may or may not actually come back to the previous topic we were just discussing. It kind of parks the old topic for a second.
Okay, but why is this transition phrase so necessary? Can't I just, say the new piece of information? Why do I need, by the way?
Well, you could, but without a marker like, by the way, abruptly introducing a completely new topic can feel jarring, maybe even rude. It might imply you weren't really listening fully to what the other person was just saying. By the way, performs a kind of conversational etiquette.
Okay, politeness.
Yeah, it acknowledges the ongoing thread of conversation while politely inserting a new one. It helps manage the conversational load, makes the transition smoother for everyone.
All right, let's look at scenario 1. Introducing a new secondary topic. How does that work?
This is probably its most common function. Imagine you're in a meeting talking about a major issue, let's say, finalizing the project completion date. We've settled that.
Okay, big topic done.
Right. Then you realize you forgot a crucial, but maybe smaller administrative detail. You might say, okay, great. So we've settled on the launch date for the project, which is fantastic. And by the way, did you approve the invoice from the graphics team yet?
Okay, I see. The invoice is definitely secondary to the main launch date discussion, but it still needs attention.
Exactly. By the way, acts as that gentle redirect. It signals, okay, new thought coming, related maybe, maybe not, but important enough to mention now. It often handles those kinds of logistical or tangential matters that pop into your head.
That makes sense. It sort of flags the upcoming information as important, but maybe not the main subject of the conversation right at that second.
Precisely. Now, what about placement? This is important for learners. Where should you put, by the way, to sound most natural?
I feel like I often hear it right at the beginning of the new thought or the new sentence, like it's acting as a clear preface. By the way, new information.
That's very common, yes. It clearly marks the start of the digression. But sometimes it does pop up almost like it was a genuine surprise even to the speaker themselves.
Yeah, like an actual afterthought.
And that brings us perfectly to scenario 2, the afterthought or reminder. Here, the placement can be much more flexible.
How so?
If the speaker genuinely seems to forget something until the very last moment, the phrase often appears later in the sentence, sometimes even tacked right onto the very end.
Can you give an example?
Sure, you could say, okay, I'll drop off those forms at the post office on my way home. Oh, we need stamps, by the way.
Ah, okay. Putting it at the end there really emphasizes that the thought needing stamps just occurred to the speaker right then and there.
Exactly. It feels more spontaneous. So that's a subtle but potentially important distinction for a learner to notice and maybe even use. Initial placement often signals a more planned or conscious digression. Final placement often suggests a more spontaneous realization or reminder.
That's really useful. Now let's tackle something critical for modern communication. Scenario 3. Using by the way in text or email.
Ah, yes, the ubiquitous BTW.
Right. Everyone texts BTW.
Exactly. And in text messages or informal chats, BTW is essential shorthand. It works perfectly. However, its use in more formal or professional emails needs a bit of caution.
Why is that?
Well, using by the way or even BTW can sometimes unintentionally suggest that the information you're adding is minor or maybe off topic or not that important,
Oh, right.
which might actually undermine its importance if it's a critical detail you need the recipient to notice and act on.
So what should a learner do in a formal email instead?
In a more formal setting, if the additional point is actually quite important, using something like incidentally, or perhaps I would also like to mention that, might be a safer, more professional choice. It signals the addition without downplaying its significance.
That's a superb insight.
Yeah.
It really shows that the conversational, almost casual tone of "by the way" implies a slightly lower priority than a more formal transition phrase would.
It does, and let me just share a quick anecdote here. It highlights the risk perfectly. I once had a student, very bright, submit an academic paper, and right in the middle of a very formal, very serious paragraph,
Yeah.
he'd written BTW to introduce a supporting citation.
Oh, no. In an academic paper.
Yes, it was incredibly jarring. It completely broke the required formal academic tone because BTW just carries such a strong conversational, informal weight. It just didn't belong there at all.
Wow, that perfectly illustrates the point, doesn't it? These small phrases, they aren't just about grammar. They're deeply tied to tone and social context and formality.
Absolutely. I think the main takeaway for by the way is that native speakers use this phrase constantly to manage conversational threads, to keep things flowing smoothly, to add information politely. Mastering its use, when to use it, where to put it, and knowing its informal way instantly elevates a learner's English from just, functional to highly collaborative and socially aware.
Makes you sound like you're really in the conversation, not just reporting facts.
Precisely.
Okay, we are shifting gears pretty dramatically now. We're moving away from the subjective world of conversational flow and hindsight and into the much more objective world of quantification, of measurement. We're doing our deep dive now into the phrase short by. This one feels very precise. It's about deficiency, but specific deficiency.
That's exactly right. This is a really powerful structure, particularly, as you might guess, in professional and financial contexts.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's used specifically to quantify the exact amount, or maybe the distance or the number of items that is missing, to reach some kind of specific goal or a quota or a requirement. The key insight here, the thing you have to remember, is the requirement for precision.
Okay, let's start with that grammatical note again then, because you're saying this is mandatory. Short by absolutely demands a measurement afterwards.
It absolutely does. You can't just say, we are short. Short by what?
Right.
Unlike saying something vague like, oh, we are lacking funds, which doesn't tell you much.
No.
Short by must be followed by a concrete, quantifiable amount. It needs a number or a quantity or some kind of specific measure. This is the fundamental difference between just noting a general failure or lack and providing precise reporting. You're not just saying not enough, you are specifying the exact deficit.
Okay, so let's look at scenario one then. Financial and quantitative needs. This sounds like the phrase is real bread and butter.
Oh, absolutely. Take the classic example maybe from a retail environment or a restaurant. The cash register was short by $20 at the end of the shift.
Okay, the $20 is the precise deficit.
Exactly. Or if you're discussing, say, inventory for a big project, we are short by 3 tons of cement for the construction project.
Right.
The construction manager doesn't just need to know the cement inventory is a bit low. That's useless. They need the exact number, 3 tons. This precision is absolutely vital for immediate problem solving. What do we need to order?
Yeah, I can totally see how valuable this is in business communications or logistics.
Yeah.
It allows for immediate targeted action. Okay, we need to find that $20, or we need to order exactly 3 tons of cement right now.
Precisely. It removes ambiguity. Now, let's push the boundaries a bit, move beyond just money and physical items. Let's look at scenario 2. Goals, requirements, and failure to meet a benchmark. This is where it applies to more abstract metrics.
Abstract metrics, like time, or maybe votes in an election, things like that.
Exactly like that, yes. For example, if a team just barely loses a competition, you might hear, they were short by 1 point to win the championship.
Ah, okay, so close.
Right. Or in political polling or election results. The candidate was short by 2 percentage points to avoid a runoff election.
Hmm.
In both cases, the phrase short by concisely captures that near success. The expectation was high, they almost made it, but the final result fell just shy of the required benchmark. And crucially, we know exactly how much they missed it by 1 point, 2 percentage points.
And I notice in these examples, even though it's close, the phrase always seems to carry a tone of disappointment or failure.
It generally does, yes, because the core function of short by is to mark that gap, that difference between the expectation or the requirement and the actual reality. It inherently highlights a critical failure point, even if the margin was small.
Okay. Now, let's address a potentially more complex application, one that touches upon maybe more abstract concepts. Scenario 3. Abstract deficiencies and idiomatic use. Can you actually be short by something that isn't a physical quantity or a clear number like points or dollars?
Yes, you can, and this is where we move into slightly more advanced, sometimes almost idiomatic English usage.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
You might hear someone say something like, the team was clearly short by confidence going into the second half.
Short by confidence. Okay.
Or maybe evaluating a presentation. The presentation was good, but maybe short by real-world examples?
I see. So here, things like confidence or real-world examples are being treated almost like quantifiable, necessary ingredients for success in that specific context.
Exactly. Even though they aren't physical objects or standard units, the speaker is framing them as measurable requirements that were missing, or at least insufficient. The structure still works.
That application is fantastic, actually. It means the learner can use this very precise structure, not just for talking about finances or inventory, but for clearly articulating a lack of necessary abstract qualities, maybe a lack of creativity or sufficient time or the right expertise.
Absolutely. It signals to the listener that the speaker views these abstract qualities as essential components and that they were missing or lacking by a noticeable degree. It's quite sophisticated.
So thinking about learners again, what's the most common error they make when trying to use this phrase, short by?
I'd say the biggest mistake is probably using short as if it were a verb, or maybe confusing the structure with just using the word missing.
Can you give an example of the error?
Sure, a learner might incorrectly say something like, the $20 is short, or we are missing by 3 boxes. The correct structures require the adjective short linked to the quantity with by. So either we are short by 3 boxes, using short as an adjective describing we, or you could say the box is 3 items short, where short modifies box and the quantity comes before it. But the key is that short isn't the verb, and you need that preposition by to connect to the deficit quantity in the first structure.
Got it. So the power of this phrase, its precision, is really tied directly to its structural rigidity. You need the lack, the adjective short, linked to the measurement, using by X amount.
Yes, that clarity is exactly what makes it so incredibly useful, especially in professional settings.
It really communicates competence, doesn't it? You're not just vaguely complaining about a problem, you're detailing the precise extent of the shortfall.
Exactly. You sound like you know exactly what the problem is. Hashtag, tag, outro, synthesizing the tools.
Wow, okay. We have truly achieved the deep dive today, I think. We've moved way past just simple definitions and really gotten into the operational function of these 4 incredibly powerful, very common linguistic tools.
Yeah, it's been good. We analyzed how to express that profound reflection, that sometimes painful regret, using the modal perfect structure should have done. And critically, we paid close attention to those essential conversational contractions like should have and shoulda.
That's your key tool for articulating hindsight.
Absolutely. Then we jumped into the present, really understanding how someone is back acts as that instantaneous status announcement, how it prioritizes the state of presence over the action of returning itself. Really essential for efficient real-time communication.
Yeah, the difference between he is back and has returned was a great insight.
And then we mastered, hopefully, the tricky art of managing the conversation itself using by the way. We learned how this little discourse marker smoothly signals a digression, how it manages conversational etiquette, whether you're speaking or, importantly, writing in texts or emails.
Right, navigating those conversational twists and turns. And finally, we covered the very precise structure, short by. Recognizing its absolute mandatory requirement for quantification, for that exact measurement, that enables you, the learner, to communicate any kind of deficiency accurately, whether it's financial, abstract, or logistical.
And I think the overarching lesson here, the big takeaway, is that real linguistic mastery, true fluency, is often found not just in knowing lots of words, but in mastering these high-utility structures.
Yeah.
Fluency isn't just about rote memorization of vocabulary lists. It's about deploying these essential grammatical structures that convey intent and nuance and that natural rhythm of the language. When you master these specific voices, you gain clarity, you gain subtlety, and frankly, you communicate much more like a native speaker.
They really are the building blocks, aren't they? The things that take your language from just being understood, maybe, to being genuinely communicative and impactful.
Well said.
And so, as we close out this deep dive, let's leave you, our listener, with a final thought. Something to ponder that really builds on everything we've discussed today.
Okay. Think back over your own English learning process. Maybe think about a specific time you felt frustrated, or perhaps a mistake you made while speaking English that caused some confusion or awkwardness.
We've all had those moments.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if you could go back in time and apply one should have done to your initial English learning journey, which one of these 4 phrases we discussed today, should have done, is back, by the way, or short by? Which one do you think you should have spent more time mastering earlier on?
That's a great question. Which one would have made the biggest difference for you? Consider that reflection. If you can recognize which specific structural block would have saved you the most misunderstanding or the most awkward pauses, you probably just identified the exact area where focusing your attention next could maximize your fluency gains right now.
Yeah. Use that hindsight, that should have known, to actually fuel your forward progress. Learn from it.
Excellent advice. Until next time, keep digging deeper.